Most of the buildings, the mobile track is open. Most of the restaurants, a couple of them shut down. Mostly those shut down. COVID staff. Order off only, but the other restaurants were open. There's dog slides out of the way. Cross country game. Right up the field. All this ice was still on the trees on 30 north. It was sunny out. It looked like found it. Got it. Did he know this up here?
We'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our first item on the agenda tonight, we have proclamations of commendation for our scholar athletes. I'll start with those. We're going to do the team scholar athlete awards first. I'll read this off and then I'll read out the individual names. Whereas the Board of Education of the Gloversville Enlarged School District recognizes the accomplishments of the following Gloversville High School girls cross country team individual members being selected as award recipients for 2021 State Public High School Athletic Association Scholar Athlete Team Award. Whereas the following Gloversville High School team has met the grade average requirement 90% or more and are eligible under the criteria established by the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. Whereas the individual members and coaches are Marilyn Chrisman, Brooke Dutcher, Marissa Dyson, Anna Murphy, and Zoe Tyson. And the head coach is Andrew Facility. And team average was 90.828. Be it resolved that these student athletes are not only victorious in the field competition, but also represent their schools and our city with exemplary responsibility, respect, and pride. Now be it hereby resolved the Board of Education of the Gloversville Enlarged School District of the City of Gloversville takes due notice of these accomplishments by our student athletes, coaches, and congratulates them on their achievements. Next one will be for our golf team. I'll read the proclamation again. The Board of Education of the Gloversville Enlarged School District recognizes the accomplishments of the following Gloversville High School girls golf team individual members for being selected as award recipients for the 2020-21 New York State Public High School Athletic Association Scholar Athlete Team Award Program. Whereas the following Gloversville High School team has met the grade average requirement 90% or more and are eligible under the criteria established by the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. Whereas the individual members and coaches are Lucia Bouchard, Haley Ebersol, Maya Morales, Ellie Salvion, and Malia Soller. Head coach is Mark Lefevre. The team average is 90.20. Be it resolved that these student athletes were not only victorious on the fields of competition, but also represent our schools and our city with exemplary responsibility, respect, and pride. Albeit hereby resolved, the Board of Education of the Gloversville Enlarged School District, the City of Gloversville, takes due notice of these accomplishments by our student athletes and coaches, congratulates them on their achievements. Well, now we have the individual scholar athlete awards. Whereas the Board of Education of the Gloversville Enlarged School District recognizes the accomplishment of a Gloversville High School student who achieved the status of scholar athlete. Whereas the student is Francesco Di Maio, boys golf, his average is 86.27. Be it resolved, the student athlete is not only victorious on the field of competition, but also represents our school and the city with exemplary responsibility, respect, and pride. We hereby resolve the Board of Education and Loversville Large School District for the city of Loversville takes note of this accomplishment by the student athlete. Congratulations him on this achievement. Next one. Whereas the Board of Education of the Gloversville Large School District recognizes the accomplishment of a Gloversville High School student who achieved the status of a scholar athlete. Whereas this student is Bradley Wazowski, boys golf. His average was 92.91. Be it resolved that the student athlete was not only victorious on the field of competition, but also represents our school and our city with exemplary responsibility, respect, and pride. We hereby resolve the Board of Education, Loversville Large School District, for the city of Loversville, takes note of this accomplishment by the student athlete. Congratulations on this. Next item, we have a presentation on the smart bonds by Bill Cooper and Lori Kent.
You have the, you've got. So let's face it up there. Where will I grab this? Yeah. That's gonna have to be big. Let's grab it. Had it up on my computer thinking that's what I was using. I apologize for the delay.
Take your time.
Yeah, you don't have.
All right, yeah, I'm going to start. Lori Kent, we're very excited to put together a Smart Bond Act to be able to order equipment, technology for the classrooms. Nothing has brought it more to our attention that we need technology within the classrooms to have our kids ready for the next generation. So the Smart Bond Act was originally passed in 2014. And it was to improve learning and opportunities for public and non-public schools, to install a high-speed broadband and wireless internet connectivity between schools, in our schools, and acquire learning technology equipment or facilities not limited to whiteboards, computer servers, desktop, laptops, and tablets and computers. So one of the things that we have already accomplished would be our goal 1, which is the district will upgrade and maintain high quality infrastructure so that the software capabilities will be able to be managed safely across our region. That has already been completed and updated. Our second goal that we had was to replace the current teacher and student computing devices with more robust touchscreen tablets and capable models. Those, for the most part, have been ordered. We have a few more for our current goal. So we are now on to our third objective, is to replace current overhead classroom projection systems with active panel displays for immersive learning, which is our current thrust and our current goal that we have put together for our application. So one of the things that we have currently looked at is investing in 108 Prometheum active boards for across our region or across our different buildings, the Prometheum stands, and you can see a number of other Chromebooks and limited warranties and accidental damage services that we have put together in our grant. The process that we have right now is the ability to first and foremost put the grant together by locating what are the needs within the buildings, the different buildings across the area, which we have done. This does not need voter approval. It is a standalone investment with a project solely funded by Smart Funds Bond Act. We currently have an instructional technology plan, which you saw our 3 initial goals from. Those have been submitted to New York State Education and have been approved. And once we have completed the steps above, which is giving you the time today to give you an informal presentation, that we are going to put this out and be able to have our stakeholders respond on it. Once that has been done, we will placing an ad for public comment. At the next board meeting on February 8th, we will be reviewing those comments and making any changes as needed and presenting it to the board for approval. So once we have approved it, we send it again back to New York State, and it is approved by the Smart Board Review Board, and the district will expend their funds consistent with the grant. We have listed on our website the allocations, the specific allocations for people to review. And we have also listed at the bottom of that page of email for communications, that they can communicate any of their questions or comments to what they think about the plan. So this is going to be bringing our school into further compliance of the technology expectations that they have for our students to interact with technology and enhance their skills. Are there any questions at this time? Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is public comment. Don't believe we received anything. One here, so we'll move on to board discussion. We have 2 sets of board education minutes that need to be approved, December 7th and December 16th. Start with the December 7th. Anybody have any questions or comments on those? Motion to approve those by John, second by Kevin. All in favor? and 1 abstention over here. Motion to approve the December 16th minutes. By Ed, second by Kelly. All in favor? All right. Anybody else have anything else for board discussion tonight? All right, moving right along. Next item is the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. Everyone in the room and everybody joining us from home. Hopefully our technology is working for us tonight. Thank Mr. Mustafa, Mr. Cooper for being here. I'd also like to thank Lori and Bill Cooper for their work on the Smart Schools Bond Act. Certainly think Loversville is well positioned for this pandemic. Nobody saw it coming, but our investment in technology, in instructional technology, has positioned our district well to transition. That was evident last March. It remains so today. So it's been a difficult school year, as everybody knows, and we're proud of the fact that Loversville school system has remained open for our hybrid instructional model. We certainly believe in-person learning is most conducive for students. And we're proud to say that there has been zero COVID transmission in our schools. So our reopening plans were well developed and thus far has served us extremely well. Obviously, those who received the all call today and the letter understand that COVID-19 is in the community. It is on the rise, but it is not being transmitted in our schools, and the infection rate in the schools remains very low. We have students and staff who need to quarantine as a result of a positive test here and there. When it happens, we do our best to inform the community without necessarily trying to cause panic. As I stated, schools are very safe for students. We've had zero transmission in any districts in the HFM BOCES. And the transmission rate across the state remains below 1%. So we encourage people to send their children to school. Time goes on, students' education is being impacted without a doubt. Our best case scenario is students on site every other day. And we continue to fight for attendance across the district, especially at the secondary level. And I can't encourage parents more than to state that you need to send your children to school. They're not contracting COVID in school. There's an obvious difference between students' performance, those in the hybrid model, and those who are fully remote, with a few exceptions, obviously. But there's no question our students in a hybrid model are performing at much better than our students in the fully remote model. I asked Mike DeMagistris to join us in case any of the board members had any question about our plans for testing or for how we communication or for quarantine. Mr. DeMagistris has done a great job as far as I'm concerned as the district's point person in all things COVID related. I sent an email, I sent a letter to parents today of our Dragon students. We'll do the same tomorrow for the Husky students. We're asking parents of hybrid students to sign this permission form, granting the district permission to test for COVID-19. We have not been color code designated by the governor's office, but certainly could happen at any given time. And for the reasons I just mentioned about the effectiveness of hybrid instruction, we want to position ourselves to transition to testing the 20 to 30% of our students and staff that would require us to stay open. We've received hundreds. I appreciate the trust those parents and guardians have in us that have already signed it. And I really implore all parents and guardians of hybrid students to return those documents to us. Feel free to call my office, call Mr. DeMagistris' office. These tests are non-invasive, a 10-second nasal swab that we get the results back in 15 minutes. And frankly, as a parent myself, I would want to know if my child possibly would be COVID positive. I don't see the downside of this at all. I understand there's conspiracy theorists out there with many different ideas, but this is frankly just a mechanism that allows us to continue educating our students in person. We find it to be time well spent, and I hope that we get enough return forms that in the event the governor does designate our region, that we would be able to test the required percentage of students and staff to stay open for in-person instruction. The as far as vaccinations go, the district does not play a role in the state's plan to vaccinate people. In fact, I do not believe children will be vaccinated at all. But when it comes to staff, teachers are now going to be eligible as part of the 1B group that is eligible for vaccinations. Our frontline workers, our nurses have already had the opportunity to be vaccinated. But in this next step, which is going to open this week, all school personnel will be eligible to be vaccinated if they so choose. The district has not taken a position on it one way or the other. We understand that's a personal decision, and certainly if the government intervenes, it will not be the school system that makes a decision for the vaccination staff. That would be something that comes from the state legislature, the governor's office. It will not come from the school system. I will personally get the vaccination when available, because I believe it's my responsibility to do my small part to help this country get beyond it. But that said, that's about the same position on vaccinations. Communication, it's something I just sent an all call tonight to the district regarding frequency of communication in regards to COVID positivity cases. And I understand there's sentiments out there that the district isn't communicating enough regarding these situations. And I'm trying to strike a balance of being transparent and communicative when it's necessary, without inundating the community with reports of every person, student who positively tests for this virus. If there's no need for anybody else to quarantine, if the student has not been in school for a week, nobody else is impacted, I've made the decision to not necessarily broadcast that, because you're going to hear from me enough, and I don't want people who are getting my calls to start thinking it does not apply to them. I'm trying to have a measured response in how we communicate to the community so that they trust us in what we're doing, all things COVID related. It's a difficult line to navigate, but I'm confident that we're doing the best we can to strike that balance. If any parent, guardian, community member has any concern regarding our district's response in regards to communication, please feel free to reach out to me or to Mr. DeMagistris. Just want to give this opportunity for the board to ask any questions of me or Mr. DeMagistris regarding COVID-related concerns in our school system.
You know, I want just on the vaccination, so the staff will sign up online. What are the time frames for that, and how is that? Is that being done at the hospital, or is it being done here?
There's a link that we'll have where staff can sign up. Right now, the link is, I don't want to say it's down, but it's not open because the hospital had a limited supplies of the first vaccination. They do have, I'm going to say less than 40 that they're going through right now. Once they exhaust those vaccinations or those doses, they'll get another batch of doses, and then they'll open it back up. And when I get the link, I'll share it with the staff. But they are vaccinating people from 8 to 4:30 p.m. and they're doing it Saturday, all day Saturday and Sunday. So I think the plan is to start on Wednesday, go through Sunday, Monday and Tuesday they take a break. Then they come back at it again on Wednesday. But that was the plan from the hospital last time I talked to them. But they're trying to get rid of the doses they currently have out of 1A, and then they'll start with 1B. And anyone who lives in a different county that works for us can get the vaccination at Nathan LaTour Hospital, or they can get the vaccination in the county that they live in.
Any other questions for Mike or I regarding all things COVID?
Logistics for the testing will work for the kids.
Sure, we have Nathan LaTour, we're partnered with Nathan LaTour Hospital, so the healthcare providers are here Tuesdays and Wednesdays. They will administer the test along with our school nurses. They're here for 8 hours a week. So we would do those tests on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Just so everyone is aware, when we applied for our LSL application, which is our limited service lab, we applied for the high rate of 30%. So just at the high school, if we got to the red zone, we would have to test 45 staff and students each week. The middle school is 43, Boulevard is 38, Kingsborough is 23, and Park Terrace is 18. So the numbers aren't very high if we are at 30%, the red zone. But we would communicate with the families that their son or daughter is being tested and give them their result. All of our bill parent has returned their mission forms. So we're ready to go. We're waiting for our application to get approved, and then we'll receive our testing. Our kits.
Any other questions?
How do you choose which students get tested? How do you choose what students get tested out of the 30%?
We're gonna go Huskies and Dragons by the cohort, and it's gonna be like a random pick of how we're gonna select people.
Thank you.
We're working on a video that we would put on the district website and Facebook page. We do not have any tests yet, so we are unable to create our own video of the actual tests ourselves at this time. Shenenda Hoa has already created a video. I'm sure people go on YouTube and look it up. It's the same thing that we would do. It's a promotional video that just shows how unobtrusive this test is, how quick it is, and safe for students of all ages. It will be conducted by trained medical staff, both from the district and from the hospital. And as I stated, I do not see any downside or risk associated with having your children tested. I would not hesitate to have my children tested.
Middle school and high school kids, they can swab themselves. The elementary level, it'll be by our healthcare providers, but the middle school and high school kids, they can swab themselves.
Any other questions on COVID-related issues? Obviously, it's been the most dominant subject in everybody's life this year, and we are no different. So, moving along, I've asked Assistant Superintendent Tim Wager to discuss the holistic student assessment, which is something to address the social emotional well-being of our students. This time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Wager.
Yeah, everybody should have a short 3-page handout. Just gives the basic overview. It's a strengths-based assessment that looks at particular characteristics amongst the kids. There's resilience, relationships, and learning and school engagement. It is a global survey. So when questions come across about relationships with adults, that's not just school-centered, but it's the adults in that child's life. It gives us a broader picture of the strengths and challenges that some of our students may face. On the backside of the page of the overview page, it gives a sample of the student dashboard. We can look at this data by building, by grade level, by gender, by age, by individual student profile. And essentially what it does is it highlights where are areas that students have real strength that we can tap into to help them be successful in areas where they might struggle. We had our first training on the 7th with the folks from the Pear Institute. It was our psychologists, our social workers, and guidance counselors, and some building administrators set in on the training with the goal of expanding this to include teacher leaders and classroom teachers so that they can have help to develop a better understanding of how best to assist their students and help them navigate difficult times. When we looked at a couple of sample students, 4th and 5th grade students that had taken this assessment before the holiday break, is that optimism was generally low. And the Pear Institute's national results during COVID have shown that student optimism has gone down over previous years, which tends to make sense, all things considered. But it also highlights, as their optimism goes down, the connectivity to school has remained strong for a lot of kids. Their relationships with peers and adults seems pretty solid. So it is a tool that we're just getting to know, and we hope it'll develop into something that will help us better serve our students going forward. I know speaking to the psychologists and social workers and the counselors, looking through the dashboard, they really think this can be a powerful tool that we can use to assist our students be as successful as possible.
Any questions about the PDSA? Obviously, this year, more than any year, I think it's tracking and being mindful of students' social and emotional well-being is warranted. But we hope that this platform will serve us well to know our students better, not just throughout this pandemic, but in the years ahead as well. And we become much more effective at, as Jim said, tapping into their strengths and addressing their weaknesses. So thank you for taking the lead on that. Any questions on the student assessment? Okay, so that completes my report. I will need an executive session to discuss personnel and contract negotiations.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is administrative reports. Start with Lisa Priolo, Principal of Park Terrace.
Hello, everybody. As you know, Park Terrace was designated as a TSI school last year. At this point in time, we've put our committee together and we've had several meetings. Our SF team targeted areas, as well as we looked at last year's annual survey of parents, teachers, and staff, including the strengths and weaknesses of the school system. And at that time, we identified the following school priorities, including chronic absenteeism, social emotional learning, student academic growth, specifically with students with disabilities, family involvement, and professional development. Through our committee work, the following areas have been identified as strengths. We looked at our data-driven instruction, which includes monthly data meetings and differentiation of groups based on that data. We believe we have consistent behavioral expectations and implementation of PBIS that included parent involvement and communication. And we felt our communication and collaboration between the classroom teachers and our reading interventionists were strengths as well, where we set student goals and our differentiating instruction. The next part of our task was to identify internal barriers or challenges, and that included parent involvement, chronic absenteeism, social and economic status of some of our students, students dealing with trauma, and a diversity of emotional and academic needs in our self-contained classes. The thing that we had to identify were actions and improvements that we felt weren't happening at the moment. Obviously, we need to improve our attendance, mostly with our students with disabilities, improve parent involvement with academics and social emotional learning, building and enhancing our SEL practices across all areas, and improving academic supports for self-contained classes. So at this point, we've met several times since last year. Things were kind of stalled a little bit, obviously, after March, but we did reconvene over the summer several times, and as well as this fall. And we have identified some supports that we've already started to implement. We look at attendance at Park Terrace kind of twofold. We have our building leadership team, which mostly focuses on building initiatives to improve attendance. Some of that last year, as you've heard, our Strive for 5, all of those initiatives that we were doing. Obviously, this year it's different. We had to change course a little bit with that as far as our building initiatives. So we're trying to come up with improved attendance, students maybe doing better on their Seesaw platform, and trying to do internal type of initiatives for the students in our hybrid as well as our remote model. Chronic absenteeism, we have a separate committee for, which consists of myself, our nurse, our counselor, Stephanie Cook, and a couple others teacher volunteers that we really target those students who are just not making it to school or in their remote learning. And for the most part, that is a lot of phone calls, trying to make connections, seeing what these parents might need to better get them to school. Stephanie Cook gets involved at that at times regarding, sometimes it's transportation, sometimes we can hook them up with someone else in the community. So just to make sure those basic needs are met, that we can get those students into school. It's been a lot of phone calls, pushing students to come back from our full remote. We think we had about 20 kids that came back, and were much more successful once they came back into the school system.
Listen, the attendance part, I have two kids in the high school, and there were some attendance issues going on there. As far as the remote days, are they checking in? I know it's not first period, second period like
Yeah.
that, but how is that?
We
part of
prioritize,
it?
yeah, we prioritize the in-person sessions with the teachers first and foremost. So it's kind of that direct instruction that we consider. So as the teachers do whole group lessons as well as small group lessons based on student needs throughout the whole day. So if those students check in for those, that's considered attendance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So attendance is good then.
For the remote, for the most
For the
part, I mean,
most,
I'm not gonna say, you know.
No different
we have a
than
hand-
others,
Yeah, we
but
have a handful that, you know, we're tracking down and trying to get more involved.
okay.
Hybrid is a little bit different because obviously when our students are home, we've had a discussion at the building numerous times because those kids are, you know, we've got the little ones, pre-K too, and their circumstances at home are different and varied. So, you know, those students mostly do follow-up work at home. So we're trying to be a little bit lenient, knowing people's circumstances are different with their homes, you know, as long as they get it in by the end of the week, we consider that work completed. Another support that we've done in the building is for our self-contained classes. The literacy coach now pushes in and provides direct support for those students. That includes doing diagnostics on all of the students to find their strengths and weaknesses and to target instruction based on that. That also includes collaborative planning with the EIS teacher and the classroom teacher. And we have ongoing progress monitor that informs instruction and provides grouping. I think I put an extra sheet in the back there. It was just from our literacy coach where they track every single month, every student, and the progress they're making on their targeted skills. And they're doing pretty good. Excuse me. Another change we made was to, as far as the district level, to get some TA support into those classrooms versus aides where they can provide more direct instruction with the students. And the literacy coach is also providing professional development for those TAs in the classroom to help them better support those classes. And finally, we did a lot of SEL work over the summer, looking at what we needed to amplify and get ready for the kids to come back. We modified our second step program to acclimate the students back in, getting them back into structure, providing support systems within the building for kids that might come back and have had a difficult time, doing morning check-ins, you know, emotional check-ins for students. And that happens with our remote classes as well as our in-person classes daily. And then as far as a system, which honestly, we haven't had to use much. Kids have been very, very doing a great job. It was a much smoother transition than we anticipated being. So, but we were prepared in case it wasn't. And then our next steps will be next week with Mr. Wager and Yilrick to go over our needs assessments and start our goal setting. I also attached on there the attendance that we've had so far, which hasn't been too bad. The biggest area is our kindergarten students with the lowest rate of attendance so far this year. Any questions?
Next is Trish Babowski, principal at Kingsborough Elementary.
Hi, everybody. On the top of this, I put our attendance this year versus last year. It's not far off, which is pretty amazing for what we're going with. But the big thing that I want to point out is our enrollment numbers. If you look at our last report in September, we have we're still with 99 Huskies. We have 125 back in the building, or Dragons back in the building. We had 116 Huskies, 126, and our remote kids have dropped from 73 to 46. So we've been very successful getting our kids coming back into our building. It is daily phone calls, it's home visits, it's talking to the parents, telling them, you know, school is the safest place. Please bring your kids back. Most parents are very accepting of that. We have been probably doing home visits once a week, just trying to make those connections with the families. My guidance counselor, my social worker have been really awesome with that and helping me out with those. And it is just getting those connections, seeing how we can help these parents. Some of it is a transportation issue, what we can do to get our kids back in, as well as sharing with the parents, you know, the importance of them being in school, you know, and when they're home, getting that remote work done. So we kind of looked at it as a building as well as with Parkeris to figure out what really is developmentally appropriate for our kids to be doing on their days they're home, knowing that they could be with babysitters and things like that. So it is, you know, they have kind of a little quick checklist that they have to do. We have iReady that they can do at home, but we understand not all of our parents have technology at home as well. So, you know, we're trying to push out a little initiative for them to do stuff at home, but with the understanding that not every family is going to have the ability to do iReady technology. And that's kind of one reason we're starting our reading challenge today at Kingsborough. All the Dragon parents today got a letter. Tomorrow, all our Husky parents are getting the letter that each month the kids are coming home with pretty much as a coloring sheet that for every book they read, they have a symbol they're going to color. We know we have some kids that are reading chapter books. So for every 2 chapters, that counts as a book. And we have a huge bulletin board that we're making in the front lobby to recognize the kids as they are reading. They get to move their superhero throughout it. I am challenging the kids to read 10,000 books by the end of the school year, which, you know, you average it out, 30 books from now till then. So I think they can do it. Faculty is also taking part in this as well. Some of them want their superhero to show the kids how much that they're reading. Kind of waiting to see what COVID challenges we're going to have at the end of the year, as in what their grand prize can be. In the past, they've loved to throw water balloons at me, but we don't know if that will be acceptable. But that is something they love to do. So I'm always willing to do it. But we will be having prizes for our kids based on top readers, top grade, top class, and any kid that hands in their sheet that they've done the reading for that month is going to be entered to win a prize for that month. I have our faculty and staff want to also record themselves reading books. So I'm going to try to make a Bitmoji classroom so that parents can just get on and click, and, you know, a book can be read to their kid. As well as we're going to be doing our Facebook Lives again twice a month, and I'm going to attempt to do a Zoom family reading night with our kids once a month. So as long as technology works, we'll see how this goes. But I think, you know, our kids usually really love these reading challenges, so we'll see how this goes. Again, to go along with this, we usually have Read Across America in March. We're trying to figure out ways to work around that. It's probably going to be people zooming in to talk to the classrooms. You really can't have the guest readers. So, you know, we're looking at different alternatives to still make fun events for the kids while they're with us. Our iReady diagnostics started today for K through 2, as well as our F&P benchmarks have been going on. Our reading teachers have been really awesome. They've been switching how things are this year, trying to make sure they can see as many kids as possible and as safe as possible. Our PBIS is continuing with our superhero bucks. So that's still something that we're doing. Kids are also having positive postcards given to them if their teachers are nominating them. And we have a monthly slideshow with all of our winners. Not only do they get their certificate, but Stewart's has donated free ice cream cones for our students of the month. And working on some virtual field trips in place and more stuff to get our kids engaged while they're with us. You know, like it's been a very smooth transition. Kids really love being in school. I have to say, I want to knock on wood, our behaviors have definitely been lower this year. Kids are excited to be here with us when they are. So I'm just looking forward to when we can have them all back. Any questions?
Thank you. Next is student board member report. Nicole.
I did a report on just some questions and concerns they have for like a half-year check-in point since we're moving into the third quarter. Some students that were hybrid asked, what happens if they like don't hand in their permission slip? They don't want to be tested. Would they be penalized for it, or would they still be able to just come into school?
So, I know some districts are trying to, like, I don't want to say, use the word strong arm to threaten kids, saying that, oh, your child will not be able to attend if they do not fill out the forms. But the fact of the matter is, if we do not, say the first month we have 20% of the kids fill it out, and we say, okay, well, let's test those 20 and let's let everybody else stay in. In a month, we're out of kids we can test. We can't just keep testing the same 20%. So the district will end up closing its doors to in-person instruction if we do not receive the appropriate number of student permission forms. That's just a fact of life. I hope we don't get to that. And I certainly don't want to say, oh, you can't come, because maybe it'll take people a month to realize that it's not invasive, it's not a big deal, and that we will get more over time. So I'm not going to state at this time, you don't sign it, your kid can't come. That just hurts kids. I would like to engage those parents and guardians in a conversation about just how benign this test is, and how much more important it is to have in-person learning than to hold a line on something as benign as a 15-minute COVID test. So,
Cole, do you have any, is there any reasoning behind it why they wouldn't want to get tested?
The people that
I
said
mean,
that,
I get the vaccination part, but the test, like,
I just don't know if it's just students not wanting to do it because they think they shouldn't have to or something like that. No one really specified why they didn't want to. They just said, are we forced to get tested or hand in the permission slip? And if not, what?
well, can you go on a mission and find out, like, and why would you not want to get tested?
Yeah.
Because it really doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean? Like, I get the vaccination. Some people are worried about that, but the test, how would you not want to know if you got COVID? Right?
I'll ask everyone.
Yeah.
Another, just this one was just a question. This is more for the high school students with the midterm week / like final week in January. Are we still doing that, or are we just going to have it in a normal school week, or some students heard?
there's obviously no Regents exams. The conversation we've had are that it makes more sense to remain in session. So like a lot of smaller districts do not have a Regents week in January. When I was principal, Fonda stopped having the high school shut down for testing for a small number of kids. And we determined that the instructional time was more important. So that is what we're going to do this year. So it'll be business as usual. Hybrid, Dragons, Huskies, and any midterm assessments that teachers want to do can be done during instructional time. So short answer, we're not shutting down for a Regents week in which no Regents exams are being offered.
You want an update if they know about prom, more senior trips or anything like that, or is it just dependent when we get there?
I wish I could give you an answer at this time, but let's hope for the best.
And then just the final thing, a lot of students and some of their parents are just concerned about the rising numbers in the schools. And some feel like it's kind of pointless for not pointless, but just say if me and friend A were social distance in school, and then after school, we immediately went out and hung out. And then 2 days later, we come back and one of us had COVID. People just feel like since people aren't social distancing outside of school, there's a higher chance it might spread into schools. Even though I do respond to some of these people when they do ask me this stuff, I say like statistically that it's not widely spread inside schools. It's one of the lower places, but there's still just the fear factor.
1%. You know, I have 3 teenagers myself, so I understand how difficult it is to keep kids from socializing. We're social creatures as it is. But in order for all of us to get beyond this crisis, there needs to be some sacrifices made by all. I would like to think the parents and guardians would agree with us that school and learning is essential at this point, and maybe do what you can to limit socializing on the outside, but the proof is there. COVID is not being transmitted at schools. Kids are hanging out after hours or at each other's houses on a weekend, and that's how it's spreading, and it's coming into school. You know, I have no doubt that some of the transmission that has transpired here and everywhere else is a result of that exact scenario. But the statistics are crystal clear that kids are not giving each other COVID in the school because of the social distancing, the mask wearing, the sanitizing, et cetera. So that's a difficult message to convey to people because they see it in the paper, they hear it on the news, it's spreading. I'm sending my kid to school with a lot of other kids, but the students are in the buildings. You see how many less kids are in the building by the hybrid model, splitting the student body in half, and the percentage of kids that have gone fully remote. The numbers in the classrooms are low, and it's not being transmitted. Wearing of masks, social distancing. I think by the time all people agree and understand the schools are safe, hopefully this crisis will have passed. I'm hoping to convince more and more of our people, and based on the numbers that our principals have read tonight about the number of kids coming back to our hybrid model, while it's continued to spread in the community, people are taking note that it's not spread in our schools, and they also recognize that in-person learning is far more effective for kids. Biggest challenge is in the high school, where students convincing their parents and guardians if they can get this done and do a good job academically without having to come to school every other day. And the reports that are coming back from the principals on student performance doesn't support that. We have far too many secondary students not doing well academically. And I certainly attribute that to our poor attendance at the secondary building, too many students not engaging, whether they're at home, not turning their cameras on, or simply not coming to school when they're supposed to. So, I get it. It's a challenge. It's a tough time to be a teenager. My heart goes out to all students. I have a senior at home as well, and it's a tough year for you guys. I really applaud your class because I feel like you've really taken this well and been very, very mature in how you've handled this disappointment thus far. You're welcome.
Any other questions for Paul? All right. Thanks, Paul. All right, we'll move on to recommended action. We have 8.01 through 16.01. Just quick before I take a motion on that, I just want to recognize Bob Rockwell's retirement is in here tonight after 33 years of service. You're retiring at the end of the school year. We wish him well and enjoy your retirement, Bob.
It was a pleasure working with Rocky, and I certainly wish him the best in retirement.
Motion to approve 8.01 through 16.01 by Vinnie. Second by Ed. All in favor? Take a motion to go into executive session to discuss a personnel issue and contract issue. Motion by Mike, seconded by Kelly. All in favor? Aye. There'll be no action taken afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you.